Those are good. Okay, let's collaborate, shall we? What do we have? Okay, so we could consider something's taste a physical property. Yeah, it could definitely be. Good. So rough or smooth, what do we call that? Yeah, so rough or smooth, and we would call that its texture, definitely. What else? Yeah, what do you got?
Material.
Yeah, so material, what's it made out of? Yeah. And of course, we could define the physical properties of that material in general. Yeah, Connor, what do you got? Sorry? Weight, very good. Weight is a physical property. I'm going to say weight or mass. We'll talk in future classes about the difference between those. Yes, sir. Size, good. What do you have? Color. Color is a good one, for sure. Yeah, what do we got after? Sorry? Yeah, for sure. Yep. What is it? Yeah, movement. Is it moving? That's a physical property. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, very good. And of course, when we say state of matter, what's that mean? Solid, liquid, or gas. Yep, as well. Height. Height is good. Yeah, what do you got, Christopher? Temperature is a very good one, guys. Shh. These are excellent. Yeah, what else? Clarity, good. What else? Size in general, yeah. Yep. Density. Yep. Oh, no. Oh, I'm good. Okay. It's fine. It's a big deal. We're fine. Sure, yeah. I'm gonna crop anything like that up to dimensions too, like in terms of hollow, things like that. Yeah. Ah, the sound something makes could be a physical property, right? If I have two different guitar strings, they have different physical properties, and one of them will make a low-pitched sound, and one of them will make a high-pitched sound. Absolutely. Yeah, shape, definitely. Which relates to dimensions. Good. That's a great list. That's really good. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Wow, I was feeling, I like that. So that's good. And of course, I had to say good before I knew if it was actually good, but you did. You came up with a good list, so that's good. You didn't let me down. See, what I could have written there is, come on, guys, try harder. That list sucks. But I didn't. I wrote good because I assumed you'd do good. So here we go.
Because we're clever.
Because you're clever. I did not put clever in quotation marks. I said clever, not clever.
Yeah, we're not sure about that.
There are no quotation marks there. I said I assume they were good because you're clever.
I'm putting quotation marks
Did you?
in here.
All right, well, Tyra's decided that she is clever, but I think you're all clever. Now, here's what I'd like. And listen, this is going to be a silent task at first. So, gentlemen, ladies, this is tougher for some of us than for others, but I want you to be quiet while we do this one, okay? Because we're going to have to collaborate in the second half of it. I want you to take a minute, and in the space below, there, I'm going to fill something in that gap after. But before we do, in the space below, I want you to describe, not naming the object, nothing like that, but the physical properties of your favorite dessert. Whatever your favorite dessert is. You can't name it. Shh. Should be silent. Thank you. All I should do is pencils moving or pens. I want you to describe. Oh, what did I say I should hear? Not talking. Yeah, not talking. It was pencils and pens. I'm talking. I want you to describe the physical properties of your favorite dessert. All right, this is not a collaborative exercise. Only speak. Your favorite dessert, what are some of its physical properties? As many as you can think. Oh, what are we not hearing? Not hearing talking. Ladies? Put your hand up. Hey, Delvin. If you don't know, you can't describe it, and that's okay. So stick to the traits you know, guys. Quieting down. Keep going. Stop. You're not talking. You're writing. No. Ask yourself, is he going to give me a snide comment when I ask this question, or answer it sincerely? And if you think it's snide answer, you can just skip the whole process. Okay, here we go. I want you to think of your own words. I want you to think of your own words, not my words, your words. Gentlemen, down. Again, you're going to use your own words. Gentlemen, all your own words, not my words. Put your hand up. Just write something. No, put your hand up. We're done. We're done here. You're writing your words, your descriptions.
What descriptions?
Your favorite dessert. You can describe its physical properties. Do I have to break the band up? What's going on? Okay. Okay, well, maybe you're still thinking or still writing. Is there somebody who feels like they've done a pretty thorough job? What I'd like to do is this. Yeah? Okay. Here's what I'd like to do. I want us to listen to this list. You're not going to tell us what the object, what it is, what the dessert is. And let's see if we can figure out what dessert we're talking about here based on the list. Are you feeling brave?
Yeah.
Great. I appreciate it. All right, so let's all pay attention. Maybe I'll write them down so we can all see them up here. Okay, what do you got? Shh. Quiet down, guys. What do we got?
Fluffy, cold, dirty white color, comes in different colors, different sizes, soft and squishable.
So dirty white color, different colors. Soft and squishable. And was there anything else?
Different sizes.
Different sizes. Okay. Now, what do we think? Let me ask you this. Before we give our guess, are there some properties here that you wish you knew about? Is there any more info? Is there a property where you say, "Oh, I wish I knew if it was blank or blank"? Yeah. What do you think? Okay, so a taste descriptor. If you had to give one description for the taste, what would you say? Like sweet, sour?
I would probably say sweet.
Okay, so we'd say sweet. Is there another piece of information we wish we had, or is that pretty good? Yeah? So solid, liquid, or gas? My instinct, if it's fluffy, is that we're talking about a solid.
It's a solid, but if you leave it out, it'll be.
Okay, well, there we go. All right. So what do we think we have, guys? What do you think? Ice cream? How'd we do? Ah, very good. Very good. Okay, shh. So I'm assuming we're talking about here, like when we say dirty white, are we talking like a cookies and cream ice cream or something like that? Yeah, vanilla with stuff in it, maybe. Yeah. So off-white in color.
Yeah.
That's very good. Shh. Now look at that. With just some physical properties, you're able to identify an object, right? Does someone else want to go? All right. Oh, Deanna, you have. Can I say? Shh. I would describe that smile as mischievous. Am I going to find your selection mischievous?
No.
Okay.
Great selection.
All right. Shh. What do you got?
It is orange and beige.
Orange and beige.
So, I'm not going to use a taste.
Is that how you spell beige?
I'm assuming.
That looks so weird. Okay, what else?
The outsides can be described as dry usually. It's good with Cool Whip on top.
Oh, I know what this is. Pumpkin pie.
Wow, yeah.
It's round, flat, and usually served warm.
Round, flat, and typically warm.
If it's from Costco, then it's really big and it's a solid.
Okay. So, shh. Orange beige, outside is dry. I don't know if good with Cool Whip counts as a physical property. Shh. I'm going to argue that is an opinion. Listen. Good is not a physical property. Good is an opinion. So I'm taking that one out. But we have orange beige, outside is dry, it's round and flat, typically warm and solid. We are, of course, saying that this is pumpkin pie. Good. Shh. Okay, but listen. Shh. Here's one thing. First of all, that was excellent. But I do want to mention, and this is important. This is important. In science, and this is key. In science, we have observations, we make inferences, and we have opinions. That makes sense? Those are three separate things. Now, saying that a pumpkin pie is orange and dry on the outside and round, those are observations. Saying that a pumpkin pie is good with Cool Whip is, which I enjoyed the pronunciation of Whip, but saying that it is good with Cool Whip is, it's an opinion, right? Good. Good. So that's a conclusion that we've drawn. So listen, and this is key. In science, we always share our observations
With other people.
We share our observations and we share our conclusions. We do both. We share what we saw and we share what we think, but we always draw a distinction between the two, right? Listen, and this is why, and this is one of those things that's important. This is why those are two separate places on a lab report, right? When you do a lab report, there's a whole section called observations. And what goes in there? Just your observations. Then there's a whole section for like conclusion and discussion. And that's not where observations go. That's where what you think those observations mean go. And those are two separate places. So it's an important thing to keep in mind that like, it's very natural. I mean, it's completely natural. We all do it, where we'll list our observations and then slip in what we think it all means, right? Those are actually separate sections. Easy to do. So that was great. So pumpkin pie. Do you love pumpkin pie?
Yeah.
It's my favorite of the
Instead
pies.
of cake, I'm getting pumpkin pie
For your birthday? When's your birthday?
The 14th.
Of this month. Well, that's only appropriate.
November.
Yeah.
I'm still in October.
Are we still in October? Yes, we are. I don't know. I only know it's Monday because I'm not exhausted yet. I know that tomorrow I'll be here and I will feel like I've never slept in my whole life. And then it could be any day between Tuesday and Friday.
Are you gonna not sleep?
Okay, so shh. Does one more person want to go? All right, what do you got? Shh, guys, please be respectful. Give me a sec. I gotta. Okay, go.
It's a red inside.
Okay, red inside.
I know what it is.
Be quiet.
Juicy. Smooth outside. And the outside is striped green and light green.
It's solid outside and like a solid liquid inside.
What?
I think that's sort of like mushy.
All right, solid and liquid inside. This is great. All right, and what would you say the taste is? Sweet. Okay. Shh. So we have something that is sweet. It's solid and liquid on the inside, but it's only solid outside. It is striped green and white green on the outside. It's red on the inside. It's juicy and it is smooth on the outside. What are we talking about? We're talking about watermelon. Great.
Sorry, is this smooth outside? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I was being terrified and said, wait, freeze? Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was like a raspberry.
Okay, so shh. By the way, I loved this because not only did somebody shout out, I know what it is, but in the great tradition of science, he was wrong. which also carries an important lesson. Should we make, well, that's the point. He shouted out that he knew what it was after one observation, which, no, this is good. This is good. I don't mean to shame you, but this is an important thing in science too. Sometimes we see one observation and we think, oh, I got this. I know exactly what I'm looking at. And then as we make further observations, oh, not what we expected. So is it a good idea to start making conclusions after the first observation? No, what do you got? Yeah, of course. Yes, ma'am. I want to move on because I'm worried about time. If we have time at the end, we'll come back. Okay. It is a fun game. I just thought of that last night. I thought this would be fun, so I went and added it to my note. Yeah.
You probably use a lot of space.
I'm going to come back to that space. In fact, I'm going to come back to that space right now. So shh. Here's what I want to say here. That's okay. You can just switch it. So physical properties oh, yeah. Whatever. Apply to objects. But also to substances. And so we can describe a cake, right? A cake is an object, right? And we could say that a cake is round and is this or that. Let's keep in mind that maybe if I made the cake, a cake might be burned. Or if I made the cake, it might be an empty tray because I ate it all on the way here. Right? I once, this is so embarrassing.
So many things.
I'm not telling the story today. I'll tell it. No. Listen.
You can't say, oh, wait.
It's just,
Yeah, you just stated it.
it's a combination of embarrassing and kind of a long story. How's this? No, I'll tell you tomorrow when we have time. It'll be just as embarrassing tomorrow. So a cake is an object, but cake in general is a substance. Does that make sense? Does this make sense? So we can talk about specific objects, but we can also talk about a substance. In other words, I don't have to have a piece of gold in front of me. I don't have to have the object gold to necessarily talk about gold's physical properties. Does that make sense? I can talk about gold as a substance, as an idea. The Greeks had a word for this. Eidos, the perfect form of something, all right? So we can talk, you don't necessarily have to know that, but it's just kind of a neat little piece of ephemera for you to add to your packet of things you can say that make you sound clever, which is good because you are clever. So we can talk about something as a substance. We can talk about like the eidos of gold without having to have a gold bar in front of us. If anyone wants to bring me a gold bar to talk about, I will not object.
I could bring a printout of the report.
That is less appealing. Okay, so now on the next page, we're going to talk about some especially useful properties that scientists like to focus on. So some properties we want to look at. This first one, what is the difference, just in everyday language, between these two pennies? What do you think? Kat, what do you think? Which one is shiny? So this one is shiny. And Andy, how would you describe this one? I saw your hand go up. Nasty and dirty. Okay.
Dull.
Yeah. I could write nasty and dirty isn't bad. I'm going to go with dull. You know, so you have shiny pennies and you have dull pennies. Yeah. They are American, that's true. But yep. Oh, that's true, the date. Those are all good. But I want to focus, those are all good. But I want to focus on shiny and dull for now. Though those other ones are good observations, they're good. But I want to focus on this. When we look at an object, we can describe it as being shiny or dull or somewhere in the middle, right? For example, the stainless steel top of that fume hood is pretty filthy. So it's not as shiny as it could be, right? There's lots of smudges on it and crud on it. But it's still a lot shinier than the blank wall next to it, right? But it's not as shiny as the glass under it, right? So there's a spectrum. Does that make sense? We call that spectrum of complete, as shiny as possible to as dull as possible, a measurement of an object's luster. I'm assuming it's Latin. Now I'm going to look that up. Latin is the go-to, but let's look up the etymology of luster.
You spelled luster wrong.
Oh, I spelled it yeah, that is the French, in fact. Let's stick with the English. So interesting. For those of you keeping track at home, it comes to us from the French. This is French. So the English is luster, the French is lustra, the Italian is lustro. Is it true? Okay, so listen. And the Italians get it from Latin, which is lustrare.
Whoa.
And this is a verb, and it means to illuminate, to light something up. No, I mean, you can. I would. It's interesting. You don't find that interesting? I find that interesting. Having said that, do you need to know that?
Yes.
No. You definitely do not need to know that. But so we have this Latin word that means to light something up. And from that, we get our word luster, which means how shiny something is. Does that make sense? So if something is dull, it has low luster. And if something is shiny, it has high luster. Has anyone ever messed around with any like 3D animating software, like 3ds Max? Have you? Blender, there you go. So if you make in Blender, if you set a material, one of the options, now I don't know if Blender, there's two different languages they might use. They might use the term specular, or they might use the word luster. But when you set up a material, there's a slider for that. And you can set it high, which will make it really shiny, or you can set it low, which will make it a really flat, matte-looking thing. Has anyone ever painted the room? Anyone said, like, Mom, I hate the color of my room, I want to paint it. When you go to buy paint, what's one of the choices you have to make? Obviously, you pick the color, but then you pick...
Intensity.
Yeah, you pick the shade, and then what do you pick? Does anyone know? Usually, you'll see, like, they'll say... Satin. If Satan's in your bedroom.
Oh, you're dead.
Satin, eggshell, and then what semi gloss or glossy. Has anyone ever seen that before? So you can get eggshell is in fact what it feels like. It's actually got a bit of texture to it, just a little bit, but it feels a little bit rough. Satin feels smooth, but there's no shine whatsoever. Like if you look at that fume hood, like the side of that, how it just looks dull, that is satin paint. And then semi-gloss has a little bit of shininess to it, and then glossy paint is like this would be a semi-gloss kind of paint. See how it has a bit of a shine on it?
What about this?
That would be like satin. That'd be normal. And then like a glossy paint is if anyone's ever seen like a piece of furniture that's really, really, really shiny, that would be like a glossy finish. Does that make sense? Well, those are all words to measure luster, the luster of the paint. Does that make sense? Shh. And you have to match that. If you painted one wall eggshell and another wall glossy, or God forbid, like changed in the middle of the wall, you'd notice, right? Different properties. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that might be a choice. But there we go. Okay, what am I looking at here with my friend the giraffe? So here I am measuring. Okay, good. So, shh, guys, definitely in day-to-day language, we'd say this one is clear. This one's like a little bit blurry. And what's this one?
Solid.
Yeah, okay, so that would be like our day-to-day language, right? Shh. Now, there's slightly more technical terms. This one here that I can see through, I'm going to call it transparent. Is everyone comfortable with that word? That's a word we've heard before, transparent. What do we call something that is not transparent, but is also not impossible to see through? Opaque is a word. Opaque is this one. Opaque means you can't see through it. So the wall is opaque. The window is transparent. But then what's this one that lets some light through but not all? What is it? Very good. That's right. Translucent. Who can give me an example of something else that is transparent? Yeah, glass. What else? Your glasses. We're sticking with glass here, but okay. What else? Yeah, the plastic it's made from and the water, right? Interestingly, has anyone seen like if you go, does anyone ever go to the cottage or go like to lake, like pond or something like that? If you look through that water, is it transparent?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it does depend. But I know we rent a cottage every year for a few days, and the water there, I definitely can't see like the sand down at the bottom, right? Like I can see through it a little bit, but it's murky. That would be what? Translucent, right? And then like the boat itself, it's opaque. I can't see through it. And these are measurements of, now this is a specific term. A specific term. Optical. And when you see the word optical, it means that we're talking about vision, right? Optical clarity. Literally means, can I see through it clearly with my eyes? So when we talk about optical clarity, an object can be transparent, translucent, or opaque. All right, so the ability to transmit light. So an object's optical clarity is its ability to transmit light through it. If it's clear, all the light goes through. If it's translucent, the light goes through, but it gets blurred up. And if it's opaque, the light can't get through. And it's interesting. You might notice something that seems opaque becomes translucent if there's a lot of light. Like if I were trying to totally black something out and I put paper, say paper over a window, will that block the light out? No, that paper is actually translucent, right? It lets some light through unless it's very thick. You need really thick paper. But you know what's amazing? Aluminum foil, even black paper will let, if it's thin, you'll see it like light will shine through it. Aluminum foil, even though it's incredibly thin, perfectly opaque. If you put a piece of aluminum foil over a light source, it will, no matter how bright the light, it simply will not let any light through. It's perfectly opaque. It's something that we use sometimes if you're trying to light seal something, like I've done some photography work and things like that. If you have to light seal something, tapes and things like that, some light can shine through. But metallic tapes, like even duct tape, for example, is great because it has metallic material in it, and it's much, much better at being fully opaque. Okay, our next physical property. What do we notice about these? I've bent a piece of plastic, and I've bent or attempted to bend a piece of glass. I mean, neither of those is actually me, but I found some lovely copyright-free clip art. Okay, so what is this? Very good. And what is the opposite of something being flexible? It is either flexible or it is, because the plastic is flexible. But the glass, we could say it's not flexible, but what is it in positive terms? Isabel, what do you think? Or is that stretch? What do you think? It might be a word, that you've heard used to describe maybe like dishes or something like that. If I dropped that piece of plastic, breakable is one of them, but if I dropped that piece of plastic, it wouldn't break. If I dropped the glass, it would. What word? Mom has like special plates. My mother always had like special plates that she said like were for special occasions, but I swear to God, we never once used them. Fragile is a good choice. It's not the one I'm looking for, but it's a good word. Yeah?
Shatterable.
Yeah, has anyone heard this word? Brittle. That's true. They do.
What are the taste brittle?
Osteo from osteon. Bones. Porosis, referring to pores. Literally, if you have osteoporosis, you have small pores. You have holes that have formed in your bones, and you're not strong. So, flexibility versus brittleness. I guess it would be better to say flexible versus brittle. But there we go. So, that exists on a spectrum, right? Things can they could be very flexible, they could be somewhat flexible, or they could be a little bit brittle, or they could be very, very brittle, right? There's a spectrum there. It's not all in, one or the other. Plastic is flexible, but you can't bend it forever. It will break eventually, right? Whereas something like metal is much more flexible, right? But even then, if you take a piece of metal and flex it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, eventually it will break. Good. Okay, what do we have here? I've got some test tubes and I've got liquids dripping out of them. And what do you notice? Yep. Yep. So now, we don't know what these are, but what is a liquid you could imagine that would behave maybe like this one? That would come out very slowly. Syrup. Good. And that would behave like this one? Water. Okay. So I apologize for double checking this. I have, every time I've ever taught this, waffled on whether the word, I'm going to give you a word, And I always forget whether it means the ones that move quickly or the ones that move slowly. So I've decided to suck up my pride and just double check before I tell you, so I don't tomorrow have to tell you that I lied to you. So if you give me just a moment. So I would like to think, listen, I would like to think that this is a moment of humility where I'm confessing to a shortcoming. I can never remember which one this describes. Okay, here we go. The word is viscosity. Okay, now, I know the word too. Here's what I want to remember. Which one of these is more viscous? The one that flows quickly or the one that flows slowly? Which one has high viscosity? Which one has low viscosity?
High is faster.
Oh, we've got high is faster. What do we think? Okay, so I've got faster and I've got slower. The only thing that can settle this?
Google.
Fight to the death. Just fight to the death. Whoa.
What is waffle?
I was kidding, and you were way too quick to start grabbing objects there. Okay.
You know what waffle is.
When you're waffling on something, it means you're going back and forth. Okay, ready? Shh. High viscosity, low viscosity. High viscosity is thick and goopy and slow moving. Low viscosity is thin and runs freely. Okay? Pancake batter, higher viscosity. The water you put in it, low viscosity. Or milk or whatever, I don't know how you make pancake batter. So in this picture here, which one of these has high viscosity? Yes. That's right. This is high viscosity. And this is low viscosity. Now, are there any gearheads in the class? When do we talk about viscosity a lot? Yeah?
When we're testing stuff like speed and, of like a liquid or.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Its thickness.
Sure. You probably won't do that a lot in your day-to-day life, but you're right. But in your day-to-day life, like this weekend I had to do this. This weekend I was doing some maintenance on my car. What did I do? Where I was worried about viscosity. Who's that? Yeah. So for example, motor oil. Now, what season are we coming into?
Winter.
Okay, so it's winter. It's winter. What motor oil did I want to buy? Because it is different. It is it is different. Now, we have just a medium kind of in the middle one that you can use in Canada all year long, and that's probably what it says on your vehicle. But like mechanics will put so in winter, do I want the thicker, goopier oil?
Oh wait, no.
No, in winter I probably want, yeah, we want lower viscosity, right? Because when it's really cold, everything gets more viscous. However viscous something is, the colder it gets, the slower it flows. And the warmer it gets, the more it flows. You know this intuitively, right? If you put like oil in a pan, and it's kind of thick and sticks together, and then you heat the pan up, it'll easily spread out and fill the pan, right? So in winter, we use lower viscosity oil, and in summer,
We use high.
we use high.
Warm the same.
Now again, you can get sort of, 5W30 that's in the middle, and it's that. But if anyone ever changes the oil and they see things like 5W30, 10W30, 10W20, those are measurements of how viscous that oil is. And you have to make sure if you use an oil that's too thick, it'll congeal and the engine can seize up. If you use a motor oil that's too thin, it won't properly lubricate and metal will still rub against metal and wear your engine out, and your engine will seize up. So you've got to have an appropriate viscosity for the engine you're using. And the actual definition of viscosity is a substance's resistance to flow. That was not spelled correctly at all. A substance's resistance to flow. And if you think of the definition that way, it makes sense that high viscosity things are goopy, right? Because they are resistant to flowing. In fact, if you think of it that way, it's a miracle that I have trouble remembering this every time I teach it. And yet, here we are. So there we go. What's something in your kitchen that's high viscosity? Molasses, if you have it, yeah. Honey. Mercury is not that viscous, actually. Mercury flows pretty well. Also, fun fact, if you have mercury in your kitchen, don't use it. Seriously though, this is actual, like, just honest point. I'm not gonna lie, when I was your age, I had pulled apart a bunch of old thermostats from some renovations my dad did on a bunch of jobs because he was a carpenter. I'd got like a big old jug of mercury that I had that I would pour around and flow into things. And it's super cool because it does all kinds of cool stuff. That was really dangerous. No, it was. It was really dangerous because mercury is poisonous. So first of all, my official recommendation is don't play with mercury. My unofficial recommendation is if you're going to play with mercury, for God's sakes, wear gloves. Wear guns. Wear guns? Wear all of your guns. No, wear gloves. Wear gloves. Okay.
What was that story you wanted to tell?
There's no time. Okay. What about this? What am I showing here? Yep. Yep. But they didn't melt it. That's the interesting thing. They just hammered it. Because, and this is true, if you take gold, you can hammer it, and eventually, if you keep doing it, you will get a nice flat sheet. Okay, perfect. Now listen. The same is true for aluminum foil. They do not make aluminum foil by melting a bunch of aluminum and laying it flat. They make aluminum foil by just rolling it through a press. They start with a thick piece of aluminum, and just like bread dough, you can roll out bread dough with a roller. That's how aluminum foil is made. You start with thick aluminum, and you just keep rolling it and rolling it and rolling it till it's thin. Does that make sense? Now, if I attempted to hammer an egg until it was nice and thin, would that work well? No. What if I attempted to hammer a piece of wood until it got really thin? Would that work nicely? No, it'd splinter and break apart. So you cannot hammer everything to make it thin. But bread dough, now hammering might not be the best way, but we use a roller and we can make dough very, very, very thin, right? If anyone's ever cooked with like phyllo pastry, you can thin it out, fold it, thin out, fold it, thin out, fold it to get those beautiful like crumbly pastries, right? So the ability of a substance to be flattened out is called its malleability. Okay, and this is
I just thought of something like malleability.
The ability to be flattened. And if that is the malleability is the noun form, what would be the adjective for something that can be flattened? We would say that it is malleable. Very good. Malleable. That is not malleable, by the way. Malleable. Malleable is the ability to be male. I don't know. Malleable is the ability to be flattened.
Or that's how you remember how to spell it. Malleable.
Sure. Okay. So some things can be flattened out, but what do we have here? So those are individual. You're not wrong, but these are individual wires. Okay, listen. This is key. Shh. Maybe you've never thought about this. How do you make wire? Sure. Well, let me ask you this. You could go to the hardware store This summer, I wanted to run electrical line out to my shed, because I have a shed in the backyard that doesn't have a light. And I wish it had a light, because there's no light, there's this skunk in the neighborhood that likes my shed more than the neighbor's shed, because the neighbor's shed has a light. So sometimes I go out to my shed, and then all of a sudden there's this thing that jumps out, and I have to run away, and it terrifies me. So I wanted to put a light there. Now here's the problem. My backyard is it goes pretty far back. My house is here, the shed's way back there. So I had to dig a big old trench below the frost line, and I had to run electrical cable. Right? I had to wire the whole thing up. And I was able to buy an electrical wire that was like 120 meters long. Right? I bought a big old roll of it, and I just laid it down in the ground. It's stuff that's certified to be buried below the frost line, so I buried it below the frost line. How do they make a wire that long? They have a mold that they are pouring copper into that is only this big around, but goes on for 120 meters. And by the way, we have wires that go across the entire bottom of the ocean that connect, country to country. Think about it. I mean, you can make telephone calls across the ocean, and we could before there were satellites in the air. You have internet connection, high speed, from here to across the ocean. How does that information get there? There's wires going all across it. Are you telling me that there's a mold that makes wires thousands of kilometers long? Obviously not.
They have a thick piece and they stretch out until it's exactly.
It's kind of like when you're making candy canes or just candy in
Yes.
general, they have to stretch it out.
Exactly. If anyone has ever made candies that they stretch out, it is the same principle. We make wire by taking a piece of metal and stretching it out. Now, that works well for copper. I can make copper wire. On the other hand, if you took my arm and attempted to make Mr. Orlando's arm wire, what would happen?
It would be longer. It would snap.
Yeah, you would break my arm. Please do not break my arm. But that's what would happen. If I took this with all the plastics and everything in it and tried to stretch it out to make a wire, it would break. Even though the individual parts of it have been made into wire, the thing on the whole isn't. So this is a measure that we call ductility. Fun fact about ductility, ducks are not ductile. If you attempt to pull on them, they will not become a wire, they will bite you.
Or you kill them. My mom always told me to stay away from boots.
Geese are godless killing machines. They are so scary. Yes. Duct tape is not ductile. No, it is not ductile. If you pull on it, it will not pull into a nice wire. It is stretchy. You can stretch it, but it does not make a wire. And there's a little diagram up there of how they measure ductility, but you don't have to worry about. But if you think about this, if you've ever played with like Play-Doh, that's pretty ductile, right? You can pull it and stretch it out and then get thinner and thinner. Now, its problem is it breaks, right? So it's ductile, but it's not strong. I want you to see. Oh, we got time for one more. Okay, what am I showing here? If I take a battery and a light bulb and a couple of electrodes, which is something we're going to do tomorrow, I have two solutions here, two liquids, and when I put the leads of the battery into the one liquid, the light bulb is off, but the other one, the light bulb is on. What am I measuring here?
I know.
Oh, you're on the right track, but very good. Electrical conductivity. And do I need to write that that's the ability to conduct electricity? I do not think so. And obviously, what am I talking about here? Hardness, right? Does anyone know what the test for hardness is? If you have two objects, how do you know which one is harder? if you've ever had like paint or something on your desk, how do you usually get it off? If it's like you scratch it with your fingernail. Great. And that would work. On the other hand, if you had a piece of sandpaper and you tried to scratch it off with your fingernail, what happens? Yeah. So
we have Philly cheesesteak subs with potatoes, yummy. We have a really yummy salad that you can buy for a plate of it with Italian dressing. We have amazing soup, which I believe is beef and barley soup. And we have one more thing for $5. Mac and cheese and potatoes. And garlic bread. It's an amazing plate.
Okay, listen up. So the last thing is hardness, and that's always a scratch test. A harder object will always be able to scratch a softer one. One sec, just one sec. Your task for tonight is you have to pick, let me finish. You have to pick 2 objects at home and describe them in terms of all of these characteristics. All of these characteristics. Off you go, thank you very much. And I am checking that, so make sure you get it done. 2 objects, have a wonderful day. Be kind to one another. Don't do anything Ryan wouldn't do. Don't do a lot of things Ryan would do. Ryan is quick to start death matches. Let's grab it. Yeah.